Hi, thanks for tuning in today to Front Porch Conversations. We're here on the porch at the Copeland Community Center on a beautiful August morning. So I want to introduce you to our guests for the conversation today, Bruce and Judy Forinash. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having
Thanks,
us.
Ann. Good to be here.
We look forward to having a nice conversation and for people getting to know you better. Let our viewers know when you moved here and where you live.
We live on Millsite Lane. We moved here 2 years ago. Almost 2 years ago.
That's
From Pensacola.
From Pensacola, okay. And where were each of you born and grew up? Judy, you want to begin?
I was born in Michigan, Upper Michigan, Rudyard, Michigan, between the Sioux Locks and Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan border with Sault Ste. Marie, Canada, and then halfway between there and Mackinac Island, Mackinac City, St. Ignace, the Mackinac Bridge.
All those landmarks that
Yes.
Michiganders are familiar with.
Yes. And grew up on a farm. Do you want me to continue with?
A little bit. What kind of farming did you do?
Hay, mainly. Animals when I was real young, but hay, oats, alfalfa. And just great parents and a great church. And so great foundation there, and a great youth group that always had activities going for a small town. Mm-hmm. Friends who didn't even go to the church came to youth activities, and that's so important for a young person to have a youth group, besides their family. And I had a great extended family too. My relatives on both sides were supportive and loving and just great family, but it's important to have a youth group for a teenager growing up.
Absolutely. Bruce, what about you?
Well, I was born in Huntington, West Virginia. So I'm one of those hillbillies that still doesn't quite speak Southern. But born in 1942. I went to high school there, of course, and then on to college right there. So Marshall University. Graduated in 1966.
We, a couple of weeks ago, had a conversation with Ted and Jody Jones, Ted also grew up in West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people here.
Yes, there are.
There are
It's been
several.
amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And do you have siblings?
No.
And Judy?
Yes, I have a sister, Jean, a couple years older.
What would you say? You talked a little bit about Judy, but what was a particularly fond memory from childhood?
I guess
Something
all
you really
of
enjoyed?
those. Just the family and growing up on the farm, and I don't know, I don't think of one in particular. Getting saved, hearing the gospel for the first time when we changed churches to the Rudyard Bible Church, and hearing the gospel. I was only about 9, but I remember it very clearly. It was one of the most important things that happens in a person's life.
Bruce, what about you?
It's interesting. Your usual childhood, I sort of think playing with the neighborhood kids when we were in school. High school was a pretty good experience. Some good teachers there. Made some good friends there. Spent the time in the marching band, a really outstanding marching band, and that was a good experience. Good introduction to a more structured environment and being able to work with a group, that sort of thing.
What was your musical instrument?
Played drum, and then outside of school, I also did some work as a drummer in different bands, jazz combos and even dance bands. So that was an interesting time growing up.
I bet it was.
Varied, but did not have any church in my life at all.
What about education for the two of you after high school?
I went to Michigan Technological University, but it was the Sault Ste. Marie branch, and right on the border of Canada and the United States. And great experience, winter festivals, carving ice statues, etc.
So you were actually involved in carving the statues?
Yes. I mean, we were just, everybody kind of got involved. And it was a good experience. I was there for 2 years. first time I had had liberal professors, and I think I told you we had to write about the most important thing that happened in our lives, and I wrote about getting saved. And I remember one guy in the class wrote about his wisdom teeth. I mean, they wrote about things that really, that's the most important thing in your life. And so the professor the next day proceeded to question me, attack me, kind of, not just a kind questioning. And one of the guys said, "You'll embarrass her. Why are you doing that?" And this was a real bombastic professor that would just walk into the room every day, throw up the window and swear, a stream of profanity. And he said, "Am I embarrassing you?" And I said, "No." And that was the first time I think I really remember God. I prayed and that God just really gave me words to say. And I don't know what I said, but just gave me the words to say in a calmness and a peace. And after class, some kids came up and just wondered more and questioned. And I think they felt sorry for me that he put me on the spot. But after that, I prayed about where to go to school then after 2 years there. And so I just felt like I was supposed to go to Bob Jones. And people wondered, they said, "Really? Do you really know what it's about?" And I said, "I just know I'm supposed to go there." And I didn't agree with some of the things that were said. It was very segregated, and things that they said from the Bible, I said, "That's not true." And so it dismayed me, but I knew I was supposed to be there. Got a good education there. I was a hall monitor, and I worked in the art gallery that's famous for the religious art. And then I got my master's while I was in Pensacola. They wanted me to get it because I was traveling for the school some during the year when I was teaching and summers. And so got a good education there. And one independent course I was taking during the year was a lot about socialism and capitalism and a foundation of our country. And I was just I'm grateful that I had to read all those books and study that, because that's so important. Today, it's even more important. So that's my education.
And Bruce, we know you attended Marshall.
I did. And it sounds like Judy had a much better growing up than I did. Sounds a lot more fun than I had. I graduated from Marshall. Bachelor's of Business Administration. Right from Marshall, that time of being a lot of people were being drafted, and so I got my draft notice. And rather than ship out to Vietnam, I decided I'd rather join the Air Force, which I found a friendly recruiter, and he took me out of the clutches of the draft board. So I joined the Air Force and just took my training in Texas, like most folks did. Stationed then in Langley Air Force Base in Hampton, Virginia. As it turns out, I was there for the 4 years I was in service. Nothing I did myself, but that's where I ended up. So I spent Vietnam in Virginia.
And what did you do during that time? What was your area?
First couple of years I was in base supply, and then the next couple of years in management and procedures, they call it. Kind of an internal audit function for the base supply organization. Then I spent a couple of years in management analysis in the controller's office, but latched onto the finance training that I'd had. While I was there, I went ahead and, of course, it was just down the road from Williamsburg, Virginia. And so I used the evening and weekends to take courses at Williamsburg, William & Mary. So I got my MBA from William & Mary. And then I went out into the real world after that.
And Judy, when you were talking about Pensacola, that was Pensacola Christian College?
Yes.
Okay. And we've had a front porch conversation with another person that you knew well there.
Phyllis Rand.
Mm-hmm.
We both... I taught there 16 years, and of course she was there altogether 50 years. But and we're so thrilled she's here now. And we know about the village because of Phyllis Rand, and then Kathy Kemp also, who went to Berkshire, and she lives in Pensacola. But we became friends. We both taught sixth grade when we first went there. So and the school was growing by leaps and bounds. Some classes were even in the hallway. But so I was there 16 years.
And to me, that's one of the things that's so fascinating about the village is people end up living here in their retirement years that they've known others here for 50 years. And I think even if this was just a local retirement community, you wouldn't have people that had that much connections.
Right.
We're
amazed. We don't know so many. Just Phyllis and her sister and brother-in-law, the Russells, but we met great people since. But we don't have as many connections as a lot of people do, as they do to a lot of people here.
During your careers, where did you go, and what were some of the things that you did?
Well, first, after Pensacola, I went to Temple Heights Christian School, which is no longer in existence in Tampa, and I was an administrator there and had some great experiences. But after about 5 years, I just felt like I was supposed to move on. There were some changes, and I didn't feel real comfortable. I just felt like I was supposed to move on, and I didn't know why. And I thought, I don't know what I'm going to do. Should I leave education? What should I do? And a professor of mine from Bob Jones was the president of Clearwater Christian College at the time, and his daughter was one of my teachers, and the vice president's wife was one of my teachers, the senior vice president. So they said, just come, we'll find a place. So they put me in an office, and I didn't know how to do office work, but it was a great experience. Well, I found out soon, because I loved working with kids and helping kids and, younger kids. And this is the first time I'd worked with college kids, but I thought, God, I don't know what you're doing, but if I'm never happy again, I want to do your will. And so I had to have kids sign their financial aid packages. So I was over in the building where chapel started and could catch the kids. Well, this handsome man came up and we were talking, and we got to talk more and more and more, and it was Bruce. And his wife had died, and he was there, and he couldn't tell you the different things. And so we started dating in October, and I remember he had asked me before that, but I was coming here to the village to meet Phyllis Rand and Kathy Kim. Or no, we were going to Tallahassee that time. We came to the village other times, but for a wedding of one of our students and former students. And so I told Bruce I couldn't date then, and I just told him, I said, I met this man. He may be the one. I was that taken with him that I thought, don't know, and so they thought that was funny. I hadn't even had the first date with him. We had just talked. So I forget what you asked.
About your career.
And so from Pensacola to Temple Heights, and then at Clearwater, and then God called us away from there. So before I get into more, just once we got married, now you'll find out his work was whirlwind of different things, but I had been in one place for 16 years and then 5. Well, from Clearwater, we went to Greenville, South Carolina, back to Clearwater, to Raleigh, North Carolina for 12 years, then to Pensacola, supposedly to retire, and then for 6 years, and then here. But I was talking on the phone to a friend, A.A. Buzz Baker and Laura Baker were friends of mine from Pensacola, and they had been other places at Tennessee Temple, and he was working for Child Evangelism in Greenville, and she had started a ministry to hurting women, Proso. And they worked with Christian schools and people. And Bruce said, I think we need to go give them 6 months of our time. I mean, without pay. Mm-hmm. Just, I thought, okay, really? Okay. And so we went. We felt like God was supposed to lead us there, that he was leading us there. And what an opportunity. We got to see them help hurting Christians, but also lead people to the Lord. But hurting Christians who had been hurt by other people or hurt by Christian organizations or churches. And it was just a fabulous experience. And we worked mainly in the office. They set up an office when we were coming. And so, but we went to conventions and met a lot of cool people just representing the materials that they had and just helping out wherever we could. But after 6 months, And we just thought, we got to find work. So odds and ends jobs. I even went into real estate. I thought, I can't go back into teaching or in education. I took too much time, and I'm married now. You know what? I was 44 when we got married. Bruce was 48. And so I taught 1 year he was hired as the financial person for a church and school, a large church and school. And so I taught in Landrum, South Carolina, a couple of years, and I taught at Southside 1 year. And then they called us from Pensacola to come back to be administrators at Pensacola. I'm not at Pensacola, Clearwater Christian College. So then we were there for, he was in charge of financial affairs, and I was in charge of student affairs. So we were there for 4 years. So altogether we were 5 years at Clearwater. And then headhunter got Bruce a job at North Carolina State University in Raleigh. And it was a temporary controller, but then they said, we've got to find a job for you. They were real happy with him. So they made the cashier's office a separate office, and he was in charge of the cashier's office there. And I worked at NC State for a year, but then I taught and was a guidance counselor for a Christian school there, and then in Fayetteville. And then...
Well, let's let Bruce catch up with how you met and to this point, and then we'll start back.
That's good. I get on and on and on, so give him time. He has more important things to say.
I remember our first meeting as well. I looked in this little window there into the office area, and there was this beautiful woman who looked up from the desk and kind of smiled a little bit at me and said, she is a very nice looking lady.
I don't remember you coming to the window.
I think I saw you there. I saw you there kind of in the back of the room. I don't think you were, maybe you didn't even notice me at the time.
But at least you smiled nicely.
Yeah. No,
let me interrupt for just a minute. At the meeting for all new people at the beginning of the year at the college, well, Bruce got up, and the people next to me were going, Judy, on both sides. Okay.
And when I first asked her out, she said no. I had something better to do, or something else to do, maybe it was. So anyway, it was a while before we finally got out on a date, so to speak. But that's the way it happened.
And what happened after the military for you?
After the military, into the real world. Got a job with Xerox in Rochester, New York. And the job was interesting. It was a very good job, but the weather was terrible. Basically, down south all my life, and then to go to Rochester, right on the lake. It was just freezing cold. Winters were terrible, 20 below. So I could take that for a while, but after a couple of years, I got something a little farther south. Went into York, Pennsylvania. Worked for a company that manufactured artificial teeth. I don't know what they're doing these days. If they use still the porcelain teeth that were made back then, or the plastic teeth, or there's a new something that's out for them now. But anyway, that was a kind of an interesting job. I did more internal audit there. Then the company purchased a company in England. So for about a year or so, I spent 50% of my time in England. 3 weeks on, 3 weeks off for almost over a year. And I couldn't really do that anymore. So I got another job after that and went to Ohio, worked for TRW. Again, a larger company, did accounting types of things in 2 or 3 of their local offices there. And was offered a job in, the last job I had with him was in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, one of the divisions there. That's when I got a call from a headhunter. You got to be careful with those people. They'll talk you into things, you never know what happened. So went to work for a company called BMY, Bowen McLaughlin, New York. It was a subsidiary of Harrisburg Steel. And this was their government contracting subsidiary. They did things for the military. They manufactured self-propelled howitzers, big, heavy, 20 to 40-ton armored vehicles. And that was a good experience being heavy manufacturing. That company also was starting in international sales to sell our military products overseas to foreign governments. Normally, that was all manufactured by the U.S. government, but now they allowed civilian companies to do the actual construction of the vehicles. So we were in the process of selling to overseas companies, and that's how I ended up over the next almost 8 years, I think, spending a lot of time overseas. I ended up with 11 countries that I'd been in for one reason or another during the time I worked there. And then all good things come to an end. We just won a large contract, and I got called by another headhunter who said, "Why don't you come and work for this other company?" And so I did. I got more experience, so more responsibility in the job. So it was a step up from that standpoint. But then the corporate headquarters made a strategic decision to downsize and get out of that part of the industry. So there I was without a job. And that was a real life-changing moment, as they say. So I was in South Bend, Indiana at the time, and decided that was a good time to say maybe do something else. I've always been kind of interested in teaching as an alternative, I thought I was. That's when I moved to Clearwater, or actually Bradenton. My folks had a little cottage there, and so I went there first. I rented a place over in that area, and then Judy, the rest is history.
Well, something you shared with me, I'd like to go back and ask you about.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned that you have a son.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you talk a little bit about him?
Okay.
He has a very interesting story to tell as well.
He is almost 50 now. Is he 50 or just 49?
49.
He's 49. But he's almost 50. Because I keep reminding him. He was born in Rochester, New York. And obviously came with us during our moves. This is before I met Judy. And we actually lived in Phoenix for a little while. Just about half a year. So he came out there with us, and then he was back with us in South Bend, Indiana. And he went to Christian school. I should mention, too, that when we were in Ohio, the time we were in Ohio, that's where I got saved. I went to Canton Baptist Temple and met some very good people. Visitation pastor came out to our house the day after we visited, and that's where he presented clearly the gospel in a way that the Lord opened my heart to it for the first time. And Robert accepted Christ as well. So that's it. That part while I was in Ohio, that all happened. And then the rest of it falls from there.
And he now is a
Now he's a psychiatrist in he lives in Kingstown, South Carolina. I was going to say how he came to be a psychiatrist, I still haven't figured out. But he went to medical school while we were in Greenville, and Air Force. He had been in the Air Force, and the Air Force, when he got out, Air Force paid for him to go through medical school. We went on from there, and he's up there now. He has a wife and kids. Long story. And how many dogs now?
I don't know. But he really helps people. We knew that early on. And, we've seen him really help, especially kids who have problems. women who are who are on drugs, getting them off that, kids who have bipolar or severe ADHD or something, giving them enough medication to function successfully. And he's just always been concerned about people. When he was in the Air Force, he didn't want to stay. He was out at Edwards in California, and the time frame, I mean, he just had to see so many patients, and he wanted to hear them and really find out what was bothering them and help them. And he didn't want to just be a robot, just seeing patients. And so we're just really proud of him that he's really helped so many people. Started a new program in the clinic he's with.
He's turned into an amazing young man.
Yes.
He really has.
Very kind, like his dad.
Well, it sounds like after you got married, you've had another number of opportunities to share in ministry together as well. With
Yes.
the various places you've worked. And I know, Judy, you're still teaching, is that correct?
Yes, at Melody Christian. Some great people there. Fun students.
And what year students?
7 through 12, English.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell our viewers before we have to end this time together?
Just, there's some great people here. I mean, we have great neighbors. Tom and Alice Rumbaugh live next to us, just dear people, kindred spirits. And we have other great neighbors, the Coopers and Marcella and Suzanne, and just a lot of great people on Millsite Lane. And then we spend a lot of time, of course, with Phyllis and Dick and Linda, and we've met Ken, and well, I knew Ken beforehand, Steincypher. And there's Janet Stevens, of course, Phyllis's cousin, but just really great people that we've had fellowship with.
And I understand that when maybe things are a little more settled and we can all be back amongst each other, you're interested in volunteering at the village.
Yes.
And that'd be great.
Yes. Thank you so much, though, for having us, and we just appreciate being here.
Well, thank you, and it's been a joy visiting with you today and getting to know you, and I look forward to having other people get to know you as they tune in. Now, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you the next time.